Suicide Squad Isekai is god tier. No other anime had this level of animation, this incredible world building, this, just kidding, I didn't watch this. Hello and welcome. It's already October, so here's a summer tier list featuring all sorts of anime to jangle in front of you. 2.5 Dimensional Seduction is an anime where the main character is a loner dweeb who wastes his days holed up in the manga club room watching the same anime over and over again, drooling over his waifu, until a girl randomly shows up one day and starts cosplaying as said waifu. Oh, and he has a childhood friend who's a professional model, and she also starts cosplaying right in front of him. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wow, this guy's such a massive otaku and girls just flock to him and want to mating press him because of that? This anime is too realistic. I thought anime was supposed to be fictional. This is going into A tier for average human experience. Okay, joking aside, this anime is actually pretty good. What you originally thought was going to be an ecchi harem is instead about delving into fandom and following your dreams, even when society is telling you to stop. Some of the best anime of the year have been like that, and seeing how 2.5 Dimensional Seduction has only gotten better and better, I'm looking forward to seeing how this progresses into next season too. Alya sometimes hides her feelings in Russian. Alright, so there's this movie I really like named A Fish Called Wanda. Yeah, 2 tier lists in a row I make some random movie reference that you haven't seen yet. Bear with me here. And in this film, John Cleese manages to be so seductive speaking in Russian to Jamie Lee Curtis that she immediately wants to have sex with him. And I bring this up because Alya speaks in Russian to toy with Misachka, the MC, and by doing so, she wants to have sex with him. And the she in this equation being his sister! Alya might have her name in the title, but Yuki is such a menace that she outshines nearly everyone else in the series, except Misachka, who is an excellent protagonist. He knows Russian too because he wanted to connect with a childhood friend of his who was Russian, but she moved away a long time ago to become a hard-based DJ. But he keeps a straight face with her, letting Alya play around with him. Fun fact, this anime was originally supposed to be an isekai story, but the author realized that not every piece of fiction needs to be isekai, which is disappointing, but I digress. This is a great series that got an excellent adaptation by Doga Kobo, who have been firing off lately, and definitely deserves an A tier ranking, but it's not my favorite romance of this season. We'll get there. Spice and Wolf continues, and the ranking from the spring season is unchanged, just like my understanding of economics. But I'm a lot more interested in checking out the original now too. Studio Passion has done an excellent job remaking this series, and now they've confirmed that there will be a season 2, so hopefully it becomes a complete adaptation. One of my favorite episodes of Spice and Wolf has been episode 13, which is just banter between Hollow and Craft for 20 plus minutes. I can watch these two talk about anything all day long. I wasn't too big on the first major arc of this Cour, but the second was excellent. This show is excellent. However, something I didn't mention in the spring tier list is that the soundtrack is also excellent. Big shoutouts to Kevin Pankin, who's had a very productive year so far, especially after doing the soundtrack for the Apothecary Diaries. Fantastic work. Failure Frame, I became the strongest and annihilated everything with low-level spells is a perfect title because you know exactly what this anime is from the first word. This is objectively a terrible anime. The animation is inconsistent, not because it's equally good and bad, but usually it's passable, and then randomly the next cut the characters will be moving around like they're a monster from Courage the Cowardly Dog. Return the slime. And the writing. Oh god, everyone in this world who's either from the real one or someone that Toka meets is just evil. And not even in a clever way. Nothing is well thought out, and the MC is the edgiest edgelord who ever edged. I really enjoyed this anime. Not even joking, and the reason why is because of Toka himself mostly. He's not well written like anything else in this series, but he is borderline evil. And when given the stickiest of situations to be in, he realizes his goals aren't just. They're only fueled by revenge. This anime really clicked for me in episode 6, which is when he single-handedly takes out the supposed strongest fighters in one go because they'd be a threat later on. He's not like now for me because he doesn't become just another average isekai protagonist. He fights for those who believe in him and only wants to seek out his brand of justice as directly as he can. This isn't a harem isekai either. He's only got one love interest, and the two of them are the best parts of this anime. And the animation can be really off-putting, but I think that CGI can be uncanny in the right ways to make the monsters creepy and unnerving. And the monster designs overall are really detailed and cool, which would make animating them traditionally harder if they weren't CGI. So I think this anime is handled better than, say, an anime with also awkward animation like I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World. Man, why do I keep bringing this anime up? Failure Frame isn't a good anime, but if you're like me, then there's definitely a lot to enjoy here, despite the flaws. B tier. Atri, My Dear Moments is a visual novel adaptation, which I bring up because there's a ton of praise for the source. And the anime has been pretty good too. Natsuki is a depressed guy who's lost his leg and living in an island village when rising sea levels have swallowed up most of the land on Earth. He dives down in a submersible with the proper equipment and fortunately not an Xbox controller, and discovers a robot who's been slumbering beneath the ocean. That robot being Atri herself. And I'm so glad that this visual novel was given an anime adaptation because Atri has so much energy and personality that so much of the enjoyment of this anime is just seeing her learn more about humankind and her interactions with others. However, I would like to mention that this is a pretty emotional anime at times too. You might not think that with how cutesy it looks on the surface, but under the waves there's a sea of feelings ready to flow out. Not to rain on your parade, but be prepared to experience some eye water watching this. First, there is My Stepmother's Daughter is My Ex, and now we've got Days with My Stepsister, so I guess what follows is... However, unlike Domestic Girlfriend, Days with My Stepsister is a much more slowed down and serious anime. It takes an approach to a step-sibling relationship where both of the leads develop feelings for one another despite how they're technically now related, or at the very least living in the same house. But it's not played for petty drama or laughs. This is a story that focuses on growth for both Saki and Yuta, and I do think that it's a really well done anime. However, I can't honestly put it any higher than A tier, since each episode could probably shave off a few minutes. This is a show that really likes to take its time. It's one that you need to sink your teeth into and be prepared for characters to just sit and slowly move about for perhaps a minute at a time. No Longer Allowed in Another World is the perfect isekai to recommend if you hate isekai. Because if you don't like most isekai where the protagonist is never held accountable for their actions, always eating up the screen time despite being forgettable, and not the reason you're watching the show, and all around a dime a dozen, then you'll love Sensei, the MC of this show, because he is such a background character that he'd make Sid Kagano jealous. You may forget which anime you're watching each episode because most of the time he's somewhere in the distance trying to jump off a cliff. But what sets us apart from most isekai is that it's really good. Did you watch Chillin' in Another World with level 2 super cheat powers last season? Remember that one schmuck who was also isekai'd and ended up being a huge liability? Well, imagine a fantasy world filled with guys like that, and they're constantly mugging the camera, challenging citizens to rap battles, gambling and drinking the day away, and terrorizing the very people they were meant to protect. Now imagine this emaciated Warped Tour fan is the only salvation for this world, as he's able to send isekai protags back to the real world. I wasn't expecting some of the episodes here to hit as hard as they do, since this is usually a pretty goofy show, but then suddenly you're hit with a major moral dilemma with no clear right or wrong answer, or generational family trauma getting in the middle of our boss fights. I'm going to put this into A tier because if I put it any higher, that just makes Sensei stand out more, and I don't want to put him in a bad place or anything. But there's another anime where the main character's favorite band is most likely the Wallflowers, as there's Makeine, too many losing heroines. And if you thought that the previous MC was a background character, then Nukumizu is such an NPC that he wouldn't even qualify as a quest giver. If he was in Skyrim, he wouldn't even have an original voice line. He doesn't even see his own reflection in the mirror. Someone asked him for the time of the day, and he's remembered that day ever since. And he's the main character of one of the best fucking romance anime I've ever seen. Seriously, this show is a masterpiece. The title isn't an exaggeration, as Anna, Chika, and Lemon are all losing girls. They've been rejected, or their crushes had someone else they wanted to date already instead. And each time it happens in the show, it's played with the exact amount of maturity and respect that you'd expect. Who hasn't had that feeling of unrequited love before? It's heartbreaking and isn't something you can easily recover from, especially when nobody's in the wrong. That's life. Sometimes things just don't work out for whichever reason that might be. There's no villains here, instead just pain. However, that's not the only thing this anime does well. While Nukumizu is into losing heroine himself, he doesn't even know how to ask others to become friends with him. He is still able to be a support for the girls who need it the most. If someone out there is going through the same pain these girls are, the best thing you can do is just support them and be a good person. Even if Nukumizu doesn't have that confidence in himself, he manages to still be a great friend. And if I haven't sold you on the series yet, then let me just say that one of the EDs for this anime just utterly destroyed me. If you know, you know. Everyone, if you're watching this, you deserve love and deserve to be loved. This anime is absolutely a standout for this season and this year. God tier. Yeah, expect this to show up on my best anime of 2024 video later on. Shy Season 2. Now, in my fall 2023 tier list, I had this to say. I'm looking forward to seeing what'll come in Season 2, though. Well, I haven't actually watched this season. I was planning to, but then I decided to rank every episode of ReZero, which took pretty much all of my spare time that I could have spent watching Shy. I'm sure this is a pretty good anime. I didn't have any reason not to watch. I enjoyed the first season. Maybe I'll get to it eventually, but I can't give it a rating if I haven't watched it. And by extension, Reincarnated as a slime is going in the same spot. Yeah, that meeting I had to attend to went into overtime. I haven't watched this either. Have you ever wondered what if Mr. Beast was a vampire? Neither have I. Mayonaka Punch is what if a bunch of vampires started a YouTube channel. The first episode begins with an apology livestream, and then the same girl they're canceling barges in and interrupts it. And if that isn't the perfect setup for a series, then I don't know what is. Masaki, upset at her former friends dumping her, meets Olive, a vampire, and the two make an agreement that if they manage to get 1 million subscribers despite her former channel, then Live can suck her dry. And I don't mean in the fun way, but what follows is a series of episodes dedicated to getting to 1 million subscribers at any cost. Which means all cards are on the table. Anything for views is an acceptable tactic. Being stranded on a deserted island, embarrassing yourself at a live competition, making YouTube shorts, selling a cheap Lunchables knockoff, whatever it takes to make their goal come to a reality. I have conflicting feelings about this show. It's not like Call of the Night where it's heavily boosted by the atmosphere and where the setting itself does a lot of the talking. This show is loud, abrasive, and in your face. And yet some of the episodes are genuinely contenders for the best of the season. Not gonna lie, I cried at episode 4. What a beautiful story told in just 20 minutes. It's definitely not my favorite group of girls form a band or become content creators anime of the year, but it's definitely got a lot more high points than you'd expect. PA Works is able to make the wildest shows possible, and the ending of this series is open-ended, so I genuinely hope that we get a continuation. I'm partially torn on where to put this, but I think it barely manages to get into S tier. If you give this show a chance, you won't be disappointed. Just, it really isn't for everyone. Mission Yozakura Family is another spring anime, but unlike Spice and Wolf, I was actually ready to rank this much lower than where I put it last tier list. Because why does everyone in the entire world just hate Tayo so much? Like, I get Kyoichiro because he's just a wild card like that, but the two end up forming a bit of a bond as the show continues. However, so much of the humor of this series is let's just have the worst things happen to Tayo, so when they do happen to drive the plot forward, it's tonally off. Since how is it any different than what the guy normally goes through on a day-to-day basis? However, as the show did start dragging for me, I really liked the Hakucha fight, and everything that's happened since has been so much better for me. It's still getting an A tier because it is pretty fun, but there are much better anime that I've already ranked in A tier. Cloverworks has been having themselves a year lately with Windbreaker, the Cour announcement, and now the Elusive Samurai, which I'm also going to put into S tier. But unlike Windbreaker, this one isn't sneaking in. It's a full-on S tier, great anime. And I'm not saying that because I'm part of Japanese Twitter or anything, but because this is an extremely unique anime. It's got such a wild and creative art style to it. At times, the action and the animation goes buck wild, and is extremely visually appealing to witness, and at times it's beyond disturbing. The series starts off looking like some cutesy slice-of-life historical adventure show, and then suddenly does a complete 180. It becomes the most brutal and gory anime of the year. I got hit with so much whiplash I thought I was getting isekai'd. This is an excellent series that doesn't let loose on showing the horror and brutality of total war, while also focusing on a fun adventure the other half of the time. Plus-sized elf, on the other hand, is the exact kind of anime you'd think it is. There's only one reason this anime was made, and it's to cater to the exact audience who'd want to watch this. And for once, that audience isn't me. D tier. But honestly, I don't really think this is the kind of anime worth getting angry at, because each episode is barely 12 minutes, and about 10 if you remove the OP and EDs, so you can watch the entire season in one sitting if you really want to. Just like the most obvious comparison, my life as Inakai-san's dog. So you're not really losing anything by watching this series, but you are gaining something. Wait. I would also like to say that this is from the author Synecdoche, who created the classic literature masterpiece, Moochie Lover. So if you want more, well, there you go. The author clearly has the type, but this anime does go over at least a bunch of exercises you can do at home in case you want to shave off those 10 kilograms. And for my fellow Americans, that comes out to about 3 football fields. This anime is terrible, but if you want to watch a really good anime this season where the main female character eats a lot, then just watch Makeine, which I'm putting into God tier a second time just to drive this point home. Pseudo Harem is such a relaxing anime. There's no stakes to this, it's just 12 episodes of this couple flirting with each other every chance they get. It's as fluffy and wholesome as you could ever want. They spend as much time as they can with each other, go on dates, and when they're home alone and sharing a bedroom, they create the divine beast dancing lion out of clay. You know, couple things. Now, I know some of you are asking yourselves why there's harem in the title, and that's because Rin acts in various different personalities because AG thought it would be cool to have his own harem. This is such a good idea, but originally I didn't know if he would be in on it too. I thought AG would be too stupid and think all the different Rins were separate people, just like how the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles wear trench coats like gumshoes from 100 years ago, and nobody thinks, hey, that's a turtle right there. Knowing how dense rom-com protags were, that was my worry, but nah, he's in on it. It's just more reason for these two to flirt. However, I have been to New York City before, and I've seen people who look just like this. Turtle and everything, so maybe it could have worked. Anyways, the pacing of this anime is really fast too. I swear, one episode I blinked and the next thing I knew they'd already gotten married, had 3 kids, and retired to Florida, forever altering the 2000 presidential election. Joking aside, this is such a warm and fuzzy show, and I swear I'm not lonely here. But this ED is so cute, easily one of my faves of this season, and puts a huge smile on my face. Just like this anime. Why does nobody remember me in this world is without a doubt an anime. It is characters, a plot, and a setting. Okay, I've watched every episode now, and I don't remember it too well. The 5 races fought a war in the past, with the humans being the winners and sealing the other races within several select Bass Pro Shops worldwide. However, the main character gets sucked into an alternate world where the war is still ongoing. The human savior never existed, and the other 4 races, being demons, celestial spirits, and beastmen, are winning. That's basically just a My Anime List synopsis, though I will say the combat system is rather interesting since humans don't have magic or special abilities. They've developed weapons in the original world that can mimic the abilities of the other 4 races to use against them, but I'll be honest, this is a second monitor anime. There is an interesting and unique story here, but it just doesn't have a great adaptation, and this is such an action-focused anime, which is unfortunate because Project Number 9 has made anime I like before. However, there is one amazing thing to say about this anime, and that is that the soundtrack is incredible. Honestly, too good for this show. Why does nobody remember me in this world as a C-tier anime with a god-tier soundtrack? Shoutouts to Akiyoshi Yasuda. Now, if you want an anime that's got an actually great adaptation and well worth your time, then you should check out Wistoria, Wand and Sword. I'll admit this anime doesn't have the most incredible plot out there. I like the world building with the artificial sun and the ever-present tower. The characters are fine enough for the most part, but the actual draw of this series isn't from its story. Instead, it's the stellar art and animation. Every episode is pure eye candy, and some of the fights had me getting out of my seat. This is another anime where the main character is the only one unable to use magic in a magical world. However, if Mash Burndead is Harry Potter, the boy who lifted, then Will Seaford is Perry Potter, the boy who leveled decks. Whether the fights focus on the brilliance of magic or the choreography of Will's swordplay, it's a feast to behold. If you're only into anime that are going to tickle your brain and make you think about the human condition, this isn't an anime for you. But if you want a really fun time watching something, please check this out. I've been enjoying this anime more than nearly any other this season. It's definitely an S tier for me. In fact, Katsuki Aoyama, a producer for this show, said it was the greatest staff ever to assemble for an anime. And I'd agree, with the possible exception of when Thomas Jefferson animated Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2 alone. And I'm also really impressed how many shows this season have had movie quality animation and direction, with the Elusive Samurai, Atri, Makeine, and the next anime I'm going to talk about, Shoshimin, How to Become Ordinary, is a brand new mystery anime based on a novel series by Honobu Yonezawa, the creator of Hyoka. But this isn't a mystery series where the MC is a hard-boiled detective hunting down D.B. Cooper or Carmen Sandiego or anything. The mysteries are much smaller scale, like solving who took the cookie from the cookie jar. I can't believe I wrote that. It takes place in Gifu City. Wait, again? Another anime takes place here? Is Gifu just funding the anime industry at this point? I wouldn't be surprised if ReZero Season 3 takes place in Gifu City. Now, Shoshimin is a weird anime to talk about because on one hand, this anime is truly special. You know it is, when it's constantly got black bars like you're watching a film. But Lap and Track gave this adaptation the care and respect it deserves. Even though this is a mystery series, the majority of episodes are seemingly mundane and about solving mysteries that most people would never care about. However, it does build on this. There's an ever-present feeling of unease coming from this series, and it manages to take sudden turns you really weren't expecting. It's all based around these two teenagers who are truly gifted in their own right, deciding to become ordinary. They're trying to become background characters like Sensei or Nukumizu, but end up making the story too interesting for their own right. I am putting this series in S tier since one of the hardest hitting moments of this whole season came at the end of episode 1, and it's just about a ruined dessert. It takes a special anime to know when to hit hard when you least expect it, but be prepared that if you go into this, it is a definite slow burn and extremely dialogue heavy. Well worth it though. Oshinoko Season 2 is an unfair anime, because in a season that's had some pretty good anime, this just shows right up and declares itself anime of the season. Honestly, I should be offended at this. No other anime is able to really come close, except Makeine, I suppose. Yeah, I'm giving this god tier because while the first season was already incredible from start to finish, Season 2 might be even more interesting. Most of the season focuses on a stage play, which would be really hard to portray well in an anime, but they knocked it out of the park. Meanwhile, the revenge plot goes in all sorts of paths you weren't expecting. The only problem I may have with this show is that I wish we got more screen time for the idol side of things. Kana's my favorite character, and Ruby, despite being a main character, is mostly relegated to the background this season. But Oshinoko proves that Doga Kobo is really making a name for themselves as a big hitter these days. I made an entire video about how incredible the Melt episode Growth was, and if you haven't seen that video, you should because it's really good. But if I had to sum up this season as a whole, it's pure cinema. Oshinoko is one of the best anime of the entire decade. If you're not watching it, then you're missing out. Simple as that. The Goddess Cafe Terrace Season 2, on the other hand, is an anime that I think has improved a lot. I wasn't really into how this anime began. I found the female cast really annoying, and in a harem, it's weird for me to say that the main reason I was watching was because I liked the main character a lot. Which is still true, he's the best part of the series, other than Akane. But now more time has passed to build up the main female cast, and I've come to like them a lot more. There's also a rival cafe that opens, and then halfway through the season, the 5 employees of that cafe crash in Cafe Familia and start living there. This is like if 5 planktons came to work and live at the Krusty Krab. And if they all wanted Mr. Krabs' cock. It's a ton of fun, and I will give it an A tier finally. I hope this ends up being a full adaptation. Have you ever done something embarrassing? Something that you know you're never going to let down and will always be a part of you? Well, imagine if that something was broadcast to the entire world. VTuber legend How I Went Viral After Forgetting to Turn Off My Stream is exactly that, where VTuber Awayaki Kokoroni forgot to turn off her stream and got utterly plastered, spending the rest of the night gooning over her contemporaries. Hey, those are her words, not mine. Now, some anime may take a few episodes to really hit their stride, but this one you'll know in the first 8 minutes if it's for you or not. This anime is mostly based off of one joke, and hey, the joke is pretty funny, but if I'm gonna be honest, I was kinda getting the point already by like episode 4. I did enjoy this anime. I find it really cool how there's so much world building here with all the different VTuber personas for the series. Despite being a fictional character, Wayaki has appeared before and collabed with others. There's even a channel made for Live On. Like, a lot of effort was put into this. And honestly, all the other VTubers are much more wild than she is. She'd be the most normal if she didn't get wasted one night and made it a recurring theme. There is one thing I find hilarious about this anime, and that is they don't show what the VTubers look like in normal life. So it's almost like it's implied that they just shop and walk around public in their VTuber outfits. Like, imagine going to your local Lonely Mart and seeing this thing. I'd go more often. This wasn't an anime that really caught my interest too much, but there is fun to be had here. B tier. There's a second part of Nier Automata's anime until it's inevitably delayed again. Heh, called it. But at least Nier Automata version 1.18 Cour 2 was only delayed 1 week instead of for several months like the first Cour was. Nier is a really special game, and this is a great adaptation for it. In fact, I think that the anime may have become underrated just based off of how long it's taken to finish coming out. But the end result is well worth it. I genuinely love this series, and while A1 Pictures may have had their hands full with Makeine this summer, I'm glad that they're still able to deliver big time on Nier Automata. In fact, I'd say that this anime is worth watching whether you've already played the game or don't have any intention to. Don't worry, it'll still make you cry just like the game did. I would put this into A tier, but I think I've got too many anime already there, so this is going inside A2. Which is exactly what I want to do. Finally, we have my dear friend Nokotan. Now, there is no other anime that had this much hype this season based off of the trailer alone. Wit Studio did an amazing job marketing this series, which may have not worked out in their favor because when the anime came out, it ended up being a lot more tame than people expected. It's still a fun anime, and even it knows it's brain rot. I'm glad I watched this anime, but it's not the second coming of Nichijou or anything. Though it does raise a question, what should be shown before an anime comes out? Like, are y'all just subject to marketing? Does an anime like this deserve the hype that was given? It didn't seem forced either. Everything in the trailer happens in the show. It's almost as if we're all just subject to our own impulses. We see a cute deer girl doing goofy things and explosions, and next thing we know our lives are consumed by deerdom. Who am I to say if an anime went too far and that the end result wasn't exactly what we were all hoping for? Is this a quality anime? Perhaps, but I wouldn't call it the funniest anime I've ever seen. Maybe that's just what our expectations will bring us. Any amount of hype past a reasonable amount will only and inevitably result in disappointment. However, contrary to that, excitement makes us feel alive. It's what keeps many of us looking forward to a brand new tomorrow. Should we continue to hype up anime that may or may not stick the landing? I don't want to seem too negative. I really enjoyed the show and the characters were all a lot of fun, but it wasn't exactly the anime I fully expected it to be, and I'm not alone. Will there be another season of this? Honestly, I hope so, but how will people respond? Will it be doomed to fail or dare to succeed off the beginning? Maybe the problem is with us. Perhaps we should go into everything as a blank slate and therefore become immune to both disappointment and excitement. But is that any way to live? I'm glad that the Deer anime exists and proves that the wildest ideas are possible. I want more anime like this to come out, but if they do, then that wouldn't make it unique or special. It would become more commonplace, so you need just the right amount of deerness in anime. And I don't even know why I was so excited for this. I see deer all the time. There's something you usually try to avoid, but their very presence evokes so much mystery, a natural wonder that they're hard to ignore. Should we as humans go about neglecting the boundless potential of nature and her beauty, or scoff at the idea that deer will never become like us? Does that make the show better? The absurdity of a deer girl doing deer things? Does watching this show make you become more like the MC herself, wondering why everything is so weird but yet normal? Is this truly an anime worth giving a ranking in a tier list? Or is this anime just a disappointment and we can just go about our lives believing so?
No.
That's all fine and dandy, but on the contrary, dear, 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 it no doubt dears us one deer closer to finding the perfect deer. I think you get the point already. And there's the summer tier list. Which anime were your favorites? And of course, I didn't watch every anime because I am a mortal man, so which ones did I miss that you enjoyed? If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to sub Wand for more swords. We're already in the fall season now, and I'm so looking forward to this. We're in a packed season here, folks. Buckle up. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.